You're tuned in to Oilers Nation every day with Tyler Yaremchuk, live every weekday on the Nation Network YouTube.
That was supposed to be the easy part of the December schedule. How did the Oilers squander it? 2 out of a possible 6 points against 3 teams that are all worse than them? How? We'll break it all down. Let's get into it with the lead. Yep, that was not good. The Nashville Predators basically lulled the Oilers to sleep in that hockey game. It was boring. There was not a lot going on. I don't even know. That's another wildly disappointing game from the Edmonton Oilers, and there have been far too many of those as of late. You go through their schedule, the game against St. Louis, that was ugly. That can't happen. And we're sitting here going, oh, they'll show us that they can bounce back tomorrow or in the next game. Then you go up against Anaheim, and we say, here we go, okay, Anaheim's starting some guy who only has 7 career NHL games, and the Oilers stomped Arizona earlier in the month, and Anaheim's only won 2 regulation games in 31 tries this year, and Edmonton finds a way to blow that, and they roll into Nashville, and you go, they've beaten the wheels off the Predators twice already this season. This is 2 points right here. Good teams don't let losing streaks hit 3. And somehow they squander that. And, when we sat here and did our little food bank goal of, hopefully the Oilers going 6-2 in their final 8 heading down the stretch here in December, it was like, okay, St. Louis, that's a spot to win. And granted, they should have if they didn't completely collapse late in that hockey game. Anaheim, that was one you circled as an automatic win. Nashville, you circle that one. Not quite an automatic win, but you're like, hey, that's a team they should beat. And then things get difficult because you have Dallas coming up next. You're on the road, best team in the Central. Okay, whatever. Vancouver is the next one, but there's clearly no free bingo squares when it comes to this hockey team. Calgary after that, tough rivalry games. Seattle after that, well ahead of you in the standings. Winnipeg on the second of back-to-backs after you would have just flown in late from Seattle the night before, and Winnipeg's having a damn good season. So you just go up and down this schedule, and you're almost more frustrated about these last 3 losses because they shouldn't happen against bad hockey teams. They just shouldn't. The lead is brought to you by Soho Yeg. Find them online, sohoyeg.com. Follow them on socials as well. They're great lunch specials, $9 for soup and a sandwich. Doesn't get much better than that. It is freezing cold out. It is soup weather in Edmonton, and Soho has got you. sohoyeg.com. It's just really, really annoying when this team continually does and makes simple mistakes, and it costs them hockey games. We'll get into the chat as well. As always, we are live on the Nation Network YouTube as well as on Twitter and Facebook. I see a bunch of you dropping your comments in there already. I'm going to bring in my boy Liam because, as always, we're going to set a light goal for today's show. And Liam, what do you got? What's our light goal today?
Let's go with an even 60 today. I think that's a good way to do it. It feels somber around here after another disappointing game by the Oilers. So let's just get to 60 likes and just try and have a good time.
In all likelihood, 60 points is the number of points the Oilers are going to need down the stretch here if they want to be a playoff team this coming season. And I don't think that's a stretch at all. They have 49 games to go. You probably need to go. And it's early, so maybe doing this kind of talk and this kind of math isn't great. But 49 games, if you look at 96 points as the playoff cut line, which I don't even think would have gotten you in this year, but I think it'll be a little bit tighter than that from top to bottom in the West. Last year, you needed 97 to get in. So, you know what? Sure, let's use 97 as the playoff benchmark. You're at 36 right now. Yaremchuk math. 61 points from now till the end of the year to get in. 49 games to go. So 30 wins and an OT loss. You need to go 30-18-1 for the rest of the season if you want to make the playoffs. Just squeak in. Give yourself a chance. That's quite a big hill to climb, and they're not doing themselves any favors right now, Liam. Last night was another winnable hockey game, and they didn't come through.
Well, that's the thing. Like the last 3 games, it kind of felt like 2 points was in the palm of their hands for most of it. And then all of a sudden, the Oilers are walking away with 1 point, no points, and then 1 point again. It's very frustrating because even when you get good performances from Jack Campbell, I know that 886 doesn't look awesome, but I thought he was pretty solid last night. He gave the Oilers, like that third goal, he probably wants back. But played well, and the Oilers didn't do it again in front of him. And it's, I don't know. At some point, like watching the game last night, I'd be curious what you think, Tyler. I thought Draisaitl and McDavid looked exhausted. To be honest, I think playing them, they were in the other end like quite a lot for at least the first two periods. Like they seemed to be in their own zone, and you can see that. Like McDavid had one shot that's so uncharacteristic of him, and you know what? Like Nugent-Hopkins showed up. Puljujarvi got, I guess, call it a lucky goal. Just good to see him get something is a positive, and I think it's time Woodcroft and Manson have a serious sit down and look about where this team can thrive the most. Because another thing that wasn't great, and I'm not saying he's a bad hockey player, but why is Yaremchuk playing? What did he play? Almost 18 minutes last night. Like I think he's been a really good positive player for this team, but that's too much. That's too much for someone like him. Just spread it. Like Holloway, I thought had a really good game again, and wasn't necessarily rewarded in a very positive way either. I think he played around 12 minutes. So I think it's time the coaching staff started doing something different with this lineup, because putting Draisaitl and McDavid out isn't a positive anymore, and it's becoming very predictable. And last night, to Nashville's credit, they did a good job of shutting him down 5-on-5.
Yeah, they finally found a way to stop the mayor of Smashville, right? Leon Draisaitl did not have a good game. If you were watching the broadcast, you would have heard them talk a little bit about Jay Woodcroft maybe feeling under the weather a little bit. I wonder if maybe there's not a flu bug going through this team. And with Draisaitl in particular, I thought he was just so off last night, and he's been brutal in the face-off dot. So I wonder if his strength just like isn't quite there. Maybe he's fighting through something. I'm not here though to make excuses for the team or anything like that. That's just honestly something as I was watching last night before they lost. I was like, man, they have a couple of guys who look real sluggish in this game, and I wondered if maybe there's not a little bit of a flu bug going around. They got to turn things around in a hurry though, because I mentioned it. 30-18-1 if you want to get to 97 points this year. Only 18 more losses at most is what you can afford from here till the end of the season. Those can add up quickly if you don't flip things around in a hurry. And I know the opposite is also true. If you find a way to finish the month strong, if you go on one of those runs where, let's say, you're 8-2 in your next 10, then the optimist side of me, shout out to our guy Rusty, who I see in the chat right now as well, then you're sitting there going, you just need to go, like, if you go 8-2 in your next 10, it's like, oh, look at that. You need to go like 22-16-1. Like, that's easy. The Oilers can do that. But the point is you have to turn it around in order for life to get easier. And I don't see a lot of signs of that with this team. We're going to be joined by Tom Gazzola in just a little bit here. He's going to join the show in just under 10 minutes from the Oil Stream and TSN 1260. We'll touch on a bunch of stuff with our friend Tommy G. But let's get into our three big things for Cornerstone Insurance in last night's game. Cornerstone Insurance Brokers, Edmonton's premier boutique insurance brokerage, your destination for commercial, home, auto insurance for over 90 years in the Edmonton area. They're still growing. Check them out, cornerstoneins.ca. Number one for me, it's Jack Campbell. I said if he's 900 or better, no complaints from me. So if he doesn't give up that goal in overtime, he's 900 or better, and there would be no complaints from me. But he did give up the goal in overtime, and his save percentage sat at an .886. So another sub-900 game for Jack Campbell. And were any of the goals egregious? No. Did he make a couple of really big saves? Yeah, he did. He made a couple of real nice stops. I'm fully recognizing that with Jack Campbell. That Matthias Ekholm goal was brutal rebound control. You're an NHL goalie making $5 million. Don't kick a puck back into the slot right onto a guy's stick. That can't happen. The second one went in off Tyson Barrie, we believe. Okay, fine. It's a shot from distance, but it hit a D-man and took a funny bounce. We'll live with that one. The Matt Duchene goal. If he stays square to the shooter, that puck doesn't go in. Like, I'm not a goalie expert, but he's down making himself as small as possible. Consistently. He looks small in the net. He shrinks down, and on that Duchene goal, he just didn't find a way to take the angle away from the shooter. He made that relatively easy on Matt Duchene. Two of those three goals, in my opinion, shouldn't have gone in. And Nashville, to their credit, they played decent, but that's not a very good offensive hockey team. They shouldn't, and this is a comment on the whole team as well, because I didn't think the Oilers were great defensively. Again, too many times they were just getting hemmed in their own end, and they have no one who can break up a cycle when that happens. But I also think that two of those three goals shouldn't have gone in. So yeah, Campbell made some big saves. You know who else made some big saves? UC Saros on the other side. Granted, that's a guy who's a consistent Vezina caliber goaltender, but the Oilers could have won that game if Jack Campbell plays even not even on, he doesn't need to play on UC Saros's level. He just has to not give up 2 poor goals. And I'm not piling on the goalie here. I don't mean to pile on the goalie is what I say, because I know I kind of am right now. But it's, again, a little bit frustrating when you sit there and look at the other side, and it's big save after big save after big save from UC Saros. And, even though he gave up, you could argue maybe one crap goal on the Jesse Puljujarvi one, brick wall in OT, brick wall down the stretch. And I didn't think 2 of those 3 goals should have gone in on Campbell. The Oilers win that game with Skinner in net is kind of the point I'm making. And I would have started Campbell. So again, hindsight's 2020, but it's frustrating again when this guy couldn't just steal the team one.
I think the team made mistakes in front of him on those goals, to be honest. Like, I think the first one for me, Niemelainen was caught flat-footed and the guy came around on him. I agree though, like the rebound control needs to be better, but I think ahead of him, Niemelainen can't, like, he's got to be ready for that. He can't just be stud flat-footed. Was it the Duchesne one that was the power play goal? Like, whatever the power play goal one was. Yeah, it was, because they just mentioned they ended an 0-21 streak right before. So, right at the end of the ice, Foegele had an opportunity to kind of kill the puck a little bit on the boards. And he just skated right past the puck and just missed it. And then it was 5-on-3 going the other way. So, like, those mistakes can't happen. The third goal, which was the Ekholm one, I feel like Campbell got a little overconfident in himself. Is a weird thing to put considering how he's been playing. But, like, why go for the poke check there? I feel like if you had stayed up straight, you would have been in a really good position to stop that puck. And then the overtime one, it kind of is what it is, I suppose. Like, maybe a bad change on the Oilers. But, yeah, like, I don't think Campbell was brutal last night by any means. It's one of his good performances. But maybe you'd want to see one of those pucks saved rather than going in the back of the net. And yeah, like you said, like Saros absolutely robbed Hyman in overtime. And he did that like 2 other times, I think, in the game. So Saros showed up, and obviously they're on different levels, but that's probably why Nashville were able to win the game yesterday.
It's obviously negative right now, and I'm reading the chat. People are frustrated, and understandably so. But one positive was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins found the back of the net 2 more times. He's now tied for 13th in the NHL in goals. He's tied with a guy like Andrei Svechnikov, who I think has also scored like 6 of his goals against the Oilers or some shit like that. But Nuge continues to find the back of the net, which is great. His change in overtime, though, was brutal. But I am trying to focus on the positives right now, I guess, and trying to change the conversation a bit. Man, the production from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is just unbelievable. Like, this guy might legitimately score 35 goals this season.
Doesn't he have more goals than Austin Matthews right now? Pretty sure
yeah,
he
someone's
is.
already pointed that out in the chat.
Yeah, I'll take that as a big positive. The Nuge just showing up. It's unfortunate it was maybe his error on the overtime goal, but he's the one who came up and scored 2 big goals for his team and actually got them to overtime. So you can almost forgive those mistakes, right? Like, you give and you take. But yeah, Nugent-Hopkins, he's shown up all season when a lot of other guys haven't. So massive positive for this team.
Yeah, the Oilers were good on the power play as well, going 2 for 3. My third big thing for Cornerstone Insurance is Yamamoto and Holloway. I thought were both really good in that hockey game. And Holloway keeps impressing me just with little things every game. I think he's gaining more and more confidence with the puck on his stick. He seems to be willing to take some more chances off the rush and things like that. So I like a lot of what Holloway did in that game at 5-on-5. He ended up playing 10 minutes and 54 seconds, which is more than Foegele. Okay, barely more than Foegele, so I shouldn't even include that. But he played, solid third-line minutes for this team, and I personally would like to see him get a little bit more rewarded. I think this is a guy you could trust with a little more ice time, and maybe his game is getting to the point where you can throw him into more of a skill role, and you might get some decent results. And I also think the way Kyler Yamamoto's played since coming back in the lineup has been a big positive. We obviously know he scored a couple of times now in the 6 games, and I just thought he was forechecking like a little buzzsaw last night. He was doing the things that make Kyler Yamamoto effective. And after really struggling early and then getting hurt, I think that's a big positive to have a guy like him starting to hum along a bit.
Yeah, and that's always been the thing with Yamo, right? Is that even if he's not scoring, at least he's contributing in other ways. Can I chime in with a fourth big thing?
Sure.
I think the other big thing is obviously Puljujarvi scored his goal last night, but just the reaction from his teammates I thought was great to see, and just like the positive around him after all these negative stories we've kind of seen in the last few weeks, especially with like the Finnish reporter and stuff like that. I thought that was just like a really good thing to see, is kind of like guys showing enjoyment. And I'm sure like a lot of other guys will see it too. Like we saw Fogel's reaction when he got his first goal, but it's just kind of nice to see that team spirit, I guess, if you can call it, after what's been a little bit of a tough stretch from this team.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. Like a positive building block, hopefully, for Puljujarvi. He played 10:39 at 5-on-5 in the game. Obviously, scored the goal as well. I know our guy NHL Sid was tracking zone entries last night over on his Twitter, and Puljujarvi led the Oilers in zone entries too. So, decent game from Puljujarvi. He needs to build on it, right? Like we've seen Yamamoto now, in my opinion, be effective for 3, 4, 5 games in a row now since he's come back. I feel like Holloway's been effective for 3, 4 games in a row and starting to do the right thing. Hopefully now this is the start of Puljujarvi playing well for 3, 4, 5 games heading through the holiday break, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, a third line that maybe has a bit more of a pulse on a consistent basis, and you got Nuge scoring on the second line, and that can keep happening on a consistent basis. And then you look at the top line as well, and I mean, I wonder about a flu bug. I don't know. They talked about Woodcroft on the broadcast, like I said, but the big guns yesterday looked sluggish, and Nashville, to their credit, also kind of lulled the Oilers to sleep. So it wasn't a fun game to watch, even though it did end in exciting fashion in overtime, 3-on-3 OT. Always a lot of fun. We are going to get to Tom Gazzola in just a second, but first I want to catch up on a few things going on in the chat. Devin says, when does Draisaitl's defensive play get talked about? He's awful in his own end, just completely disinterested. I don't fully buy that. I think he had a bad game last night, and if that's your takeaway, one of your takeaways from last night's game, I think that's totally fair. But I also think part of what makes 97 and 29 so dangerous is that they're always looking to jump up in the rush, right? And you sacrifice a little bit in the D zone to make that happen. He's not great in his own end, but when he wants to dial it up, he's the guy they use when they're shorthanded 5-on-3, right? For the most part. I know this year that's changed maybe a bit, but I'm not overly concerned about that. Rusty says, Nuge is on pace for 42 goals and 92 points this year. You love to see it. Like, even if he falls off, even if his pace isn't this, which it won't be, like he'll go through a slump at some point. He's not a 90-plus point guy, but he could very well be a 35-goal, 35-assist guy this season. And I think that's awesome. Even if it's coming on the penalty or on the power play for the most part, who cares? Joel's in. Split up Connor and Leon at 5-on-5. It's time to push for Chychrun. No one can convince me he isn't a huge upgrade over Broberg and Kulak at this point. Probably an upgrade over Nurse. There are a lot of you. Pretty much every game the Oilers lose now, there's like 9 to 10 people in the chat being like, well, this is the sign. They need to go get Jacob Chychrun. Go get him now. Give up Broberg. Give up the picks. Do whatever it takes. And I get it. I'm still not convinced he is the perfect fit. And if you're going to give up Broberg and 2 firsts or a first and a second, you need to be pretty damn sure that a guy is going to be a perfect fit for you. I think they can spend smarter. I don't know if just jumping and spending like a drunken sailor because you lost 3 games in a row in December is like the smartest play out there. But maybe we'll get our friend Tom Gazzola's take on that. Let's bring him in. Tom Gazzola from the Oil Stream and TSN 1260. He does the pre and post game shows there as well. Tommy G, welcome back to Oilers Nation every day. How are you doing, man?
Hey, Yaremchuk. Happy holidays, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, look at you all festive. You got the Christmas tree up in the background and all of that. You're staying in E-Town, obviously, for the holidays, not searching out a quick couple of days somewhere warm. Oh, the fireplace, too. Killer.
Fireplace. Got the phony fireplace. No, I'll be here. I'm in for Dusty like the next 3 weeks as Big Daddy Davos makes his triumphant return to Switzerland. So, I'll have my 3 days off around Christmas itself, which will be great. But no, I mean, obviously with all the games and the morning show duty, it's slugging it out through the -40 stuff, and we'll complain about it, but when we can stay warm and be merry and be with family and friends, take advantage.
Surveyor Brett was tweeting in. He wants me to give you the gears for taking. So it was on the Nielsen show. It was a holiday entertainment draft.
Yep.
And you took Elf first overall, and you're getting ripped that. I don't get it, actually. I think Elf is pretty good, but like, what did people want you to take? Like, what went after that?
Yeah, Christmas Vacation, straight up. I mean, for some, or for a lot of vocal people out there, Christmas Vacation is the movie entertainment wise that like apparently was the consensus number one. But I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really care for Christmas Vacation. I stand by Vegas Vacation being the best one of the series. And almost out of spite and, anger and frustration towards everybody thinking Christmas Vacation is the best Christmas movie, I just went with Elf because I think everybody loves it. It spans generations. It's timeless. It's a beautiful story with some wonderful actors and characters. So I took Elf at number one, and I don't care for Christmas Vacation. I said it. I feel that way, and that's my way of showing it.
I don't hate the take. I don't hate the take at
Thank
all.
you.
Let's talk a little Oilers. A lot of people are clamoring for Chikrin again, and the conversation is about the blue line. Jay and I
Yep.
had a big debate yesterday on one of our pods, and I said this blue line has the potential to be better. Darnell Nurse has been awful. He can be better. Evan Bouchard hasn't been good. He can be better. I think there's a lot of pieces that can take a step forward, and we can expect some element of internal improvement. Jay thinks I'm insane. He thinks the only way they get better is if they go out and make a big trade. What side of that debate would you come out on?
I understand the trade theory. I really do. And I think at some point there will be a trade. I don't know if it's a splash like Chikrin, although if you did want to go down that road, it's going to cost you a ton. You're going to get raked over the coals from the Coyotes. Their price is super steep.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the internal improvement and growth. And let's not kid ourselves. The Oilers defense has been spotty. I don't think people expected Evan Bouchard to suffer this much this season. I think there was a level of expectation for peaks and valleys because it's truly his second full NHL season where he's playing every single day. The shortened season, he played 15 out of 56. He was up and down a little bit before that. Last year was his full taste. Yes, he had Duncan Keith with him, pardon me. And then I thought he took a real big step, but this year, it's been more valley than peak. I mean, he had a few moments here and there, and I think it's fair to say his general season has been an overall disappointment. And then at the same time, you've got Philip Broberg and Marcus Niemelainen, who've played the majority of the games compared to Ryan Murray, who's supposed to be Broberg Insurance. And those guys are going through their growing spurts as well. And it's tough. We talked about it on air, off air, going into the season. If the Oilers are going to have these two young guys, sometimes three young guys playing regularly, like there's going to be some blemishes. And man, there's been some huge blemishes. Absolutely. Then you factor in how Darnell Nurse has struggled at times, mightily at times as well. There's been moments where, Brett Kulak has had a tough spot here or there. I think he's actually been pretty consistent. A guy who never gets a lot of praise for his defensive ability is Tyson Barrie, and nobody's talking about him. And I think that's a good thing. A little more chatter lately on the post-game show, people complaining about Barrie. But overall, when a guy like that is someone who's actually giving you half-decent minutes on the back end defensively, that's a sign that the other guys aren't pulling their weight. And then on top of that, Yaremchuk, just the way the forwards support this season in their own zone has been atrocious. It really has been. You defend as a 5-man unit. I was listening to Jameson and Lowtide talk about the Oilers defensively, and people were texting into their show on 1260 saying, how are the Leafs getting it done? I mean, look at their back end. It isn't anything to write home about. Guess what? Their forwards play better in their own zone than the Oilers forwards. And, listen to you guys talk about Draisaitl's game in his own zone. Him and McDavid are not excellent in their own zone. They're star players for what they do offensively. They can get the job done in their own zone, and they have good moments at times, but that's not their MO. And so they have their warts in their own zone as well. And it's just, for whatever reason, this team came together after Jay Woodcroft came in, and he talked a lot about backtracking through the neutral zone and responsibility in their own zone. And the team really took to it last season when he came in. This year, it's just been a tire fire from day one, even dipping into the preseason when it's been, a mix of guys trying to make the team, and then you get your regulars in there. It never improved, and it continues to be a huge problem. However, on the bright side, and it is the holiday season, so you want to be a little bit more positive, they can clean it up. But these last 3 games have just been an absolute waste.
Well, and that's why, like, you can sit there and blow your prospect pool up and blow all your draft pick capital and go get Jacob Chikrin. But I look at it like, man, wouldn't a guy like Jonathan Toews, if you could play him on your third line or maybe even your second line, whatever you end up doing, he helps you defensively. And
Yeah.
maybe instead of giving up 3 premium assets for Jacob Chikrin, you give up one of those and a smaller piece to get a guy like Jonathan Toews, and you give up one of those and another smaller piece to go get a Vlad Gavrikov or someone who's maybe a step below Chikrin on the cost scale, and you get 2 pieces because a third line center who's great in his own end, that will help you defensively, arguably just as much as going out and getting a Chikrin would.
Yeah. Throw in face-offs too. I mean,
Well, yeah.
hypothetically, if you're going to get if you were to go after Jonathan Toews when he's available, and you can get him for a relatively good price, think of a guy for the Oilers like a Taves, again, hypothetical, who could actually win some draws, help turn the tide that way, because again, they got burnt on it. The Oilers get killed off of draws so bad, and it directly leads to goals. Like it's just, it's mind numbing how bad they are when it comes to assignments off the draw. Like there's times where they'll win a face off and then they'll get scored on because there's no support. There's nobody, handling their assignments properly. They'll blow an assignment, they'll miss a check, and the puck's in the back of their net. So a guy like that could definitely help it out and make a difference there, because it's so telling and sad and redundant and gets repeated night after night after night. It's frustrating, and I can totally understand why the fans are frustrated. And then if you do get, again, like a Gavrikov, you shore things up. A thing that popped up on the post-game show last night, Yaremchuk, was it was Broberg and it was Bouchard, and people asking about them. And I threw Niemelainen when I answered. And, you don't have Duncan Keith. And I know, the presence that he had is important as well. But Chris Russell's name's popping up, and I thought that was a little bit odd at first. But then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, Keith and Russell, those are guys that had how many games under their belt, how many experiences and things that they had gone through over the course of their careers. And your replacements are Niemelainen and Broberg, and then sometimes Ryan Murray, with another young guy in Evan Bouchard, who's still trying to find his way without the support of a Duncan Keith or a Chris Russell. It started reminding me of the 16-17 season going into 17-18, where all these veterans were sent out the door and they were relying on young guys. And, Jujar Kara was supposed to take a step, Anton Slepyshev, Drake Gazzola. Like, it was like, hey, now it's your turn to run with it. You've had 1 year, maybe 2, to learn the tricks of the trade. Go get it. And they failed miserably. And I think in a little bit of a parallel, we're kind of seeing that on the back end. But I still think Bouchard's capable of a much better game. I still think Nurse is certainly capable of playing much better. I think Cody Cece's got dragged down at times because of Nurse's blunders and has had his moments as well. So, they can do it internally because they have. Would outside help be ideal, or would it be great right now? Yeah, 100%, because it's frustrating and they're pissing away points. But I don't know if it's necessarily realistic at this moment. But I think in time, Ken Holland's going to make a move to try to bolster things. You got to factor in the cap and everything as well, too. So many things going on with this team. As always, never a dull moment. That's the beauty of the Oilers.
Yeah, really. The chat is lighting up because you talk about veterans from last year, and Chris Russell's name shows up. How is this guy just chilling at home? He's just on the ranch in Carolina, Alberta, not doing anything. I'm surprised. Like, I was surprised that they went out and got a guy like Murray when someone like Chris Russell, could he not have been had for like league minimum? And he knows the system. He knows the guys. You can slide him in and out of the lineup as much as you want, and his game doesn't suffer. Like, it's weird that Chris Russell doesn't have a job.
Yeah. I mean, he gives you everything. The old cowboy in him. He's always in the fight. It's never flashy. I don't, I don't think he's necessarily done in his mind, but nobody picked him up. Nobody took a flyer on him. He puts it all out there when he plays. But yeah, I don't know how much he would help Yaremchuk this year right now in this situation. But again, there's a presence with those veteran guys. There's an understanding of how to handle certain situations that can turn some of these OT losses that we've witnessed, or a loss or two here and there, into maybe you salvage a point or you actually get the win, just because of the veteran nature and the wiliness they bring and the calming presence. Those are factors, and they do make a difference. And missing that element, I think, is popping up. And now we're giving it a little bit more light because we've had a good sample size, and we recognize where this team is suffering, especially when it comes to the defensemen.
Yeah. We're live on the Nation Network YouTube as always. Tyson wants me to call out the light goal again. The light goal today is 61 because that's how many points the Oilers need from now to the end of the year to get to 97 points, which was the playoff cut line last season. So if you're watching on YouTube, hammer that like button for us. One more area I want to touch on with you, Tom. It really feels like the honeymoon phase between the fan base and Jay Woodcroft has kind of come to an end. And we got people in the chat saying, oh, he's just coaching like Dave Tippett did last year. It's play the hell out of the Stars, play the fourth line for 6-7 minutes, and hopefully McDavid and Draisaitl will carry you to victory. And I get it a little bit. There's been games where it's a little puzzling to see his usage in terms of the forwards. And when he came in last year, like I remember those clips that kind of went viral of Derek Ryan talking about how, oh, being a depth guy just feels different now. We have a purpose. We know what we're supposed to do out there. And that was a big reason, in my opinion, why the Oilers turned it around under Jay Woodcroft. It feels like he's gone away from that. Have you noticed any changes in the way Woodcroft's coaching this team?
I mean, obviously going to the well with McDavid and Draisaitl, it's so tempting. And the pressure in this market, the pressure internally, like it'll wear on guys. And now Jay Woodcroft is going through the same plight that Dave Tippett did, Todd McClellan did, even Ken Hitchcock. And he, I think, is dealing with what I like to say is between the heads or between the ears of the team collectively. Like there is this mindset or attitude with this group where they sleepwalk their way into games time after time after time. Doesn't matter who the coach is, what they're saying to them, how they're prepping them, video, pump up speech or anything like that. Like we're seeing the same things over and over and over with multiple coaches. And I think Woodcroft has had that realization and he goes, oh crap, like this is what so-and-so went with and had to deal with. And so you try everything you can, you scratch and claw and you try to get victories and you squeeze out 30 minutes a night from McDavid and Draisaitl, and yeah, it wears on them. Yes, I do see the changes and the tendency to go away from rolling 4 lines or even 3 lines and not trusting your depth guys. And they're getting goals. They're scoring. They're one of the highest scoring teams in the league, but they cough up so much. So it's, you're trying to bail out water while the boat is sinking. And to me, like, yeah, you could put in Mike Babcock. You could put in Joel Quenneville, John Tortorella, name any coach that has done anything ever in the National Hockey League with this group. And I think the same tendencies will pop up because it's the players on the ice that have been the constant. And I think until the mindset shifts and changes, or they have that aha moment where it clicks and they have to buy in and they can't just step on the ice and expect greatness because they're so talented, we're going to be dealing with this and talking about these scenarios time after time after time. So I can understand. And you're right. Like some of the decision making has been odd. But I think that's just Jay Woodcroft dealing with what is the Edmonton Oilers and their plight, because this team is nowhere near perfect. It does have some extremely talented players, a couple of thoroughbreds, but there's times where, for whatever reason, the lights aren't on with this group, and you're trying to find the switch. And there's been so many coaches try to do it. You gas another coach, you know, it's just redundant. Like, what are we doing here? Because I think I've covered this team for a dozen years, and I think there's been like 7 or 8 coaches. It felt like every second year you're introducing yourself to a new coach. So where's the problem? It's the guys on the ice in the room.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, if this core can't figure it out with Jay Woodcroft, this core is never going to figure it out. So if your solution is, oh, they need a new coach again, like, man, you might as well prepare yourself for another decade of darkness at that point, because it's just not going to happen if they can't get it done with Jay Woodcroft. Tommy, always appreciate the insights, man. Merry Christmas. Have a happy holidays. Enjoy getting up at 4 a.m. for the next week or so. And we'll chat
it's the
later.
worst. All right, Yaremchuk. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Thanks for having me.
There you go, Tommy Gazzola from the Oil Stream and TSN 1260. Let's get to the wrap for today's show. We need 21 more likes, so please hammer that like button for us if you're watching on the Nation Network YouTube. It's easy. You just got to click that little thumb up button. Hit it. Let's see if we can make a quick jump up here. I made this point yesterday, and I'm not sure if it was on this show or on Real Life, Liam, but last year they started so damn well. Like, they came out of the gates hard. They were, what, like 16-5 at one point, one of the best teams in the NHL, and then it just cratered. It just went right down. And they were one of the worst teams in the NHL for like 2 months. Like, I think maybe we forget that. Last year, it wasn't like they just slipped up for like 2 weeks. Like, they were terrible for a really long stretch. Dave Tippett didn't get fired until February 11th. I still remember a moment after a Sherwood Ford Giant pregame show last year where I sat on the lime green couches in the Nation Network offices staring at the ceiling, and I turned and I said, this team's not going to make the playoffs, and we're going to have to deal with 2 weeks of hockey at the end of the year where they're mathematically out of it, and it's going to suck. And damn it, they turned it around. This year, I don't know if right now, pre-deadline, this team has the ability to go on a run like what we saw last season, where they were one of the best teams in the NHL to start and in the last month and a bit of the season as well, and that's what propelled them to 104 points. I actually still think they can get to the 100-point mark this season. It's not the most insane thing, and I just think they're going to be, even if this sounds insane right now because they're in the middle of a 3-game losing streak, I think they'll just be a little more even keel. Instead of going like up, down, way down here, and then whoa, way up here, and then way down here again. I think they'll just kind of hum along in the middle, a 3-game winning streak, a 3-game losing streak, and it just kind of bounces around that way. And I really do think we'll be looking at this team at the trade deadline with the same eyes that we looked at them last year, which is top of the division maybe isn't within reach, home ice advantage certainly is, and they got to add because they should be in the playoffs.
This may sound stupid after what's been going through, but I literally have no concerns about them missing the playoffs. I just look at and it's solely on the division they play in. Like, it stinks. They're only 1 point behind Seattle right now. It's for a playoff spot, and I think that's the big advantage for the Oilers is they're able to kind of go on these bad runs. But like you said, like, it'd be nice if they would just even things out a little bit, win 2 or 3, then lose 1. Like, just don't so up and down all the time. And I liked what Gazzola said actually about the how 2017 and this year is similar in the fact that they're asking young guys to step up and do something. I think that's very interesting considering Ken Holland is like widely known for like his veteran guys, and he didn't bring back a Russell or like maybe add a more veteran guy to the forward group too. It's like an interesting tactic by Holland, especially after like what they've lost. And I think that's just where they're gonna go at the deadline. Like Jonathan Toews, like I know I've been talking about Domi a lot, but like maybe Toews is the guy to like kind of get there. And like it was on, it might have actually been on the post game show yesterday on Gazzola's post game show. He was saying how he's like, imagine being in a dressing room last season and then you're looking down and a couple stalls down, he's Duncan Keith, and he's just cool, calm, and collective. Like, if you don't think that matters, I think you're incredibly wrong. And I think it's a massive part of what this team's identity was last season. And now it's been gone. And I think they need to step up. And we say it all the time, like, this team is more than capable of being a very, very good hockey team. And they are making errors that is literally costing them 2 points. I don't think the Oilers are losing the game based off, like, an effort thing. They're losing games because, quite frankly, they're making terrible decisions with the puck.
Yeah, and I guess the big question would be, are they making those bad decisions with the puck because they're just in a slump right now, or are they incompetent? And I look at last year, and this was the big fight Jay and I had yesterday on the show, yesterday on Real Life, because he's like, we've been sitting here for 35 games saying, oh, the blue line will just get better. And I get that that's frustrating, but I really do think it can. I have watched Darnell Nurse with my own 2 eyes be a top pairing D-man in the NHL. Last couple months of last season, he was really, really good, and people forget that because all they remember is that he got hurt and struggled in the playoffs. But he was really, really good down the stretch last season. Evan Bouchard was really, really good down the stretch last season. And I just think if this is a 35-game slump, there is at least a 25-game heater from both those guys coming at some point this season. And I'd be willing to bet on that. And I think that'll help give them a spark. And again, are they capable of doing what they did last year and going on a run down the stretch where, again, top 5, top 3 team in the NHL? Probably not. Can they be a top 10 team from now to the end of the year? Yes, absolutely. Can the deadline give them a spark? Yes, absolutely.
Can the players coming back from injury give them a spark? Like, there's so many guys on the sidelines too.
Yeah, and that's another big point too, is things will start to turn around. And it might not be as sexy as maybe we wanted it to be, and they might not win the Pacific Division this year. They probably won't, but this division is crap. The season isn't done. You don't need to go make a panic deal now just for the sake of it or whatever. It's just, this is just going to be what this show is like all year. We're going to have 3 or 4 game winning streaks where me and you are kicking our feet up being like, what a time to be alive. 9 points in 3 games for McDavid and Draisaitl. Life is good. And then we'll have a lot more shows like this one, folks, where we got to sit here and be like, this team is frustrating and they're driving us crazy. A couple of you in the chat asking about some potential trade targets. Matthias Ekholm, we saw him last night. He scored twice against the Oilers this season. People asking, could he be an option? 3 more years, $6.25 million. Probably too tough to squeeze that in. You would need to move out too much serious salary. And I can't see Nashville moving a guy that wears an A on a blue line that's already banged up. They're in the playoff race. So no to that. Someone asking about Cam Fowler. He is a 4-team trade list. So Cam Fowler's making 6-point-some million, 4-team no trade list. No way. No way. Pateri's in. Hey, Tyler, how's it going regarding your bet about the Oilers becoming better defensively in December? Not good. That's for sure. But there's still time for them to turn it around. Come on now. Let's show my Rusty the Reckless Optimist side.
Did you see what Bob Stauffer tweeted this morning, if we're going to talk about trading and stuff like that? So Bob Stauffer tweeted, so he said this was Stauffer's Christmas wish list for the Edmonton Oilers. Number 1, healthy Evander Kane and Ryan McLeod. I think that's number 1 on everyone's. Number 2, a steady left shot defenseman who plays a simple game and can play penalty kill. Essentially what they got in Brett Kulak last year and Dmitry Kulikov the year before that. Number 3, a hard-nosed, fast right shot depth winger. So take that for what it's worth, but that's what Bob Stauffer tweeted out this morning, and most of the time he doesn't just say stuff for fun.
No, that's not usually the way Bob operates. A healthy Evander Kane and Ryan McLeod would certainly help this team. Ryan McLeod may be close, could maybe be back by the end of the month, we're hoping, so that could be coming. Evander Kane's not coming for a bit, so yeah. A steady left D who plays a simple game and can PK. Yeah, that should be Carson Soucy, but the Seattle Kraken can't make the playoffs. And the last one, Spencer says in the chat, that's Zach McEwen or Sam Lafferty. So there you go. And Spencer also says Gavrikov. Yeah, Gavrikov, McEwen. Boom, there you go. Deadline's done. Move on. Kane's back and healthy. Fighting Amish. Stauffer has bad takes. Stauffer's also like more plugged in than anyone. So when he tweets stuff like that, you should probably pay attention to it. Bob doesn't just say stuff for the sake of saying it. Trust me. But yeah, we'll see what ends up happening as we get closer to the deadline. We can't end the show till our like goals hit. We're only at 49. If you're watching on the Nation Network YouTube, I see it. There are 76 of you. We only have 49 likes. Hammer that like button for us. We are 12 likes away from hitting our goal today. Tyler Mulick, Kane coming back from injury, Ken Holland deadline masterclass. I mean, I really do hope we aren't in a situation where Ken Holland sits in front of the media at the end of the deadline and goes, getting Evander Kane back is pretty much a deadline ad, because that will drive me nuts. That is a fireable offense. Not a fun time. Tomorrow, though, chance for the Oilers to bounce back, but they're taking on the Dallas Stars. It'll be a Sherwood Ford giant game day tomorrow on the show. Their mobile service center, that's something you could probably use on a day like today when it's minus 40 and the Nation truck won't start. So I'll be hitting on my friends at Sherwood Ford. You can too. That's why you shop there. Good people out at Sherwood Ford. Also, shout out to our friends at the Sports Closet. As always, we are live from the Sports Closet studio, sportscloset.ca, for the hockey or sports fan in your life, no matter who they're a fan of. Sports Closet's got gear for them, so check them out. 3 locations in Edmonton as well: Sherwood Park Mall, St. Albert Mall, and Kingsway Mall. 53 likes, folks. We are getting there. We are getting there. Liam, should we talk a little betting here? Do you got some Betway picks lined up for us or what?
I do, but I have an interesting question for you before we get to that.
Okay.
I was just looking through some of the free agent players, that free agent available in the summer. The Oilers were late for this guy, but yeah, so I was just kind of looking through some of the right shots. What if they're back in on Connor Brown from Washington, or do you think Washington's probably not going to want to sell at the moment? They're obviously been on a bit of a run recently, but that's a name that the Oilers actually looked at over the summer. So maybe that's another name that could be brought in now.
He's out for the season.
Oh, what? Why do I even say stuff on this show? First Troy Terry and now this? What did he do?
Yeah. He blew something out. I think it was like his ACL or whatever. Yeah, he's not playing all year. So no Connor Brown. But remember, like, when we were doing the free agent show, like, Bob McKenzie tweeted, the Oilers have acquired Connor Brown, or the Oilers are getting close on Connor Brown. And, like, Bob's not wrong that often. So that was really surprising when it didn't end up happening. I remember sitting there reading the tweet on the show being like, oh, sounds like the Oilers are getting Connor Brown. We had articles written up, Oilers acquire Connor Brown. And then it just randomly went to Washington. Oilers didn't get the deal done. But we know they like him. He's played with McDavid. That's a guy who, you know, maybe coming off an ACL tear, you can look at in the summer and go, hey, man, 1 year, $2 million. Yes, Puljujärvi's gone at that point. Sign him for cheap. It's the 1 year Tyson Barrie-esque deal. Come here, rebuild your value with Connor McDavid, and there you go. Brent Smythe is in the chat. Taves and Gavrikov would be awesome. That would be my dream. If you could give me three realistic pieces that they can acquire before the deadline, it would be Taves, Gavrikov, McEwen. Boom. You're tougher to play against. You have a good defensive center. Your left side is wildly improved. So that would be it for me. Tyler's in, says, should have gotten Brown and Strome. Strome is playing top-line minutes in Washington. I wanted the Oilers to go get him. I don't know if he necessarily would have been the answer defensively that you're looking for on the third line, so maybe not a great fit here, but I do love seeing him have success out in Washington as well. What are we at? 53 likes. If you're watching on the Nation Network YouTube, we only got a couple minutes left. 8 more likes to go. Hammer the like button, please. We want Liam to be able to afford Christmas presents this year. Speaking of money, let's get to our bets. What do you like tonight, Liam?
Well, we're going with a couple of road dogs and two of the hottest teams in the NHL. The New York Rangers. Pittsburgh have been pretty good. The Rangers have been better. Plus 115. And then Tampa Bay is back in Toronto. I'm going with Tampa too. I just see it like two hot teams. I think they're both like 8-2 in the last 10. So I'm going to run the risk and go chase a little bit of the juice here with some road underdogs.
Not bad. Not bad. I like taking the over in St. Louis, Seattle later tonight. Grice versus whoever's in net for Seattle. Seems like a good matchup. And I have a funny feeling the Flames are going to beat the Sharks for the second time this week. Sharks going to be without Tomas Hertl, who's suspended. So there you go. Couple of plays from us for our friends at Betway, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Oilers should have traded for DeBrincat in the offseason. No. See, like, again, going all in, giving up 3 major assets for one guy, I don't know if that's necessarily the play. I think you need to add more than one piece to this team. Depth is the problem, not high-end skill, which is why I don't think they'll be in on Patrick Kane. I don't think they were ever in on a guy like Alex DeBrincat, and it's why I don't think they've bucked up and paid the price for Jacob Chychrun, because they recognize it's the depth that's an issue. Hit the like button, please.
Yeah.
Not going to ask again. But right, Liam, like, I think we're in agreement on this. Like, yeah, okay, DeBrincat's almost a point per game in Ottawa. Would have been awesome. But if you're looking at it at the lens of right now in this moment, yes, they could use Alex DeBrincat. At the beginning of the year, you're looking at a roster that's fully healthy, and you're going, okay, McDavid, Kane, Draisaitl, Nuge, Hyman, and one of Yamamoto or Puljujärvi. You have 6 guys in your top 6. You're full. At the time, it didn't make sense, so it's hard to go back and say, well, I should have done it.
Could they wouldn't have been able to afford him either. Like, the contract wouldn't have just been too much. Wasn't another big thing why Chicago didn't want to keep him is the qualifying offer was just, what was it, like 10 million or something like that? Yeah, like, there's no way. Like, yeah, they couldn't do that. Like, the Oilers don't need that. And we even addressed it with Tom just then. Like, the Oilers are one of the highest scoring teams in the NHL. The problem is they can't stop the puck from going in the back of the net because they don't play good team defense. you need to find some forwards who can contribute to that and help everybody out and kind of even things out. And man, Alex DeBrincat on this team, hey, sure, that would have been awesome. That would have been great to see him flying around Rogers Place with McDavid again. But we don't need him. There's other issues, and he's not the answer.
Bigger issues. Yeah. If you had to take a stab right now, Liam, if I set the over-under for the Oilers at 99.5 points for the rest of the year, you taking the over or the under on that?
What are they at right now? 36?
36 and 33 games. They are averaging over a point per game, but that's not exactly great.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll try and be optimistic about it. I'll take a leaf out of Rusty's buck. Just they're a good team, and they're just struggling at the moment. I know we've kind of said this for a while, but at one point in this season, they also went on a 5-game win streak, and it was only last week they had won 6 of 8. You know, like they're finding ways. Like they just in a slump, and if we want to just take these last 3 games, they've literally shot themselves in the foot. The other teams haven't necessarily beat them; they've beat themselves. And that's the issue with this team right now. And I think they can turn it around. And like obviously Dallas tomorrow isn't going to be easy, but I also never know what Oilers team is going to show up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just went out and beat the wheels off Dallas, to be honest. Like, who really knows day to day what's going to happen with this team? And I believe in this team a lot. And I think everyone else should too. Like, yes, we've spoke about it again on this show. Like the tough tales that happened last season too. And that were overshadowed because of how well they did in the playoffs. And someone said in the chat, like, it's not good enough just to make the playoffs. Sure, but that's the first step to try and win in the Stanley Cup is to get to the playoffs. You can't win the Stanley Cup if you don't get to the playoffs. So that's the first step for this team.
Right.
And that's the first step for every single team that is trying to make the playoffs is to get there. And that's when you aim to try and win the cup from there. This team, I think, will be okay. I believe in Holland to go and make deadline acquisitions because he's literally done it every single season that he's here. So there's not a lot of reason to believe he won't do it again.
We need 2 more likes, people. 2 more likes to hit our goal. Then we'll wrap up today's show. If you're watching on the Nation Network YouTube, hit that little thumbs up button, please. We are at 59. We're so close. The Dallas Stars, they're coming into this game. They beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 2-1 yesterday. They even had an empty netter in there. Then they gave one up with 10 seconds to go. Wasn't their best game of the season. Jake Onger, though, has been unbelievable. They lost 5-4 to Carolina earlier in the week. Barely beat the Capitals. It was 2-1 in their game before that. They're playing good. They've been really, really consistent this year, and they blew out the Oilers earlier this season as well. So it'll be a tough one, but we'll break it all down tomorrow. We're either going to have Frank on tomorrow or Thursday. I'm waiting on confirmation with him. He's had just like a brutal travel schedule the last couple of days. So hopefully our boy Frank can work his way onto the show. Well, he will be one of the next 2 days. Maybe it's tomorrow. Either way, tomorrow's a Short Ford Giant game day as well. So Jay's going to be around to give us some takes as we get set for a matchup against the Dallas Stars. That is going to be a wrap for today's show. We hit our like goal. Great work, everybody. Great work, Liam. Shout out to our technical producer, Alex Allard, as well. If you miss a show, we are available wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. So search Oilers Nation every day with Tyler Yaremchuk. And if you can join us live, we love you even more. So tune in tomorrow, noon Mountain Time on Oilers Nation every day. Enjoy your Tuesday, hockey fans. We'll chat then.